Welcome back, everyone. Let's go ahead and talk about another monitor. It's been a while since I talked about a specific monitor, and this time we're talking about the LG Ultrafine 5K display. Now, this specific monitor is the one that I actually use on an everyday basis. I've been using it for about 3-4 months now, and to be honest, there are pros and there are cons for this, specific monitor, but these things have gone down in value quite a bit, which I'm really happy to see. And on Amazon, you can actually pick them up for a little bit over $1,000. And, these things were really expensive not too long ago. I think ever since Apple's, 6K display came out and all that, these things have gone down in value. And I'll tell you this, this is definitely not a perfect monitor, but I do think for a lot of people out there, I think it's the perfect monitor for them. Now, starting off, this was back in the day, a monitor developed by LG and Apple. So they kind of got into cahoots with one another and they developed out this monitor about 5 years ago. And since then, it's been in almost every single Apple store. I think it's still being used in the Apple stores currently. And the display of this is pretty much the same thing as the 5K iMacs, and that's the main selling point of this thing, and that's the main reason why I bought it. The 5K iMac displays are so beautiful, they're so perfect, and this is essentially a stepping stone of that. It is pretty much the exact same panel, but it just doesn't have the Mac, components inside of it, which I don't mind, I think it's totally okay, but I really didn't like the build quality, and I'll just come out and say it right there. This monitor feels cheaper than some of my HP monitors that I bought for $100. This thing is completely built out of plastic. It has a really good heft to it, which is something I really do like, but it just doesn't feel that nice compared to this day and age in 2021, where our MacBooks feel so premium, our iMacs feel so good, and you have to connect your such a premium feeling MacBook to a very cheap feeling display. I'm not a humongous fan of that, and even though I use this every day, that is definitely one of my main problems with it. I just don't like the way it feels. It just feels extremely cheap. The display, on the other hand, looks very good. This is the best display, 5K iMac, this one, they look very good. Of course, the 6K display is probably better, but this one, it looks very good. I have no problems with it. And the fact that it's gone down in value this much, I'm really happy to say. But even back when this display was made, 5 or 6 years ago, whenever it was, you have to keep in mind that for the most part, our iMacs, our MacBooks still felt pretty much the same. They felt extremely premium, and I don't know what it is, but the feeling of this thing isn't really that great. That is definitely one of my biggest problems with it. But visually, I knew a lot of people that didn't like the bezel around it. Maybe they wanted it to be slimmer or something. I really don't mind too much, and I didn't even mind with my 5K iMac. I didn't feel like that display, the bezel around it really bothered me too much. You got really used to it. And because you're not carrying your iMac around and in this case, you're not carrying the display around, you don't really see those amount of problems. You don't really feel the heaviness of this display, but you can feel occasionally that it doesn't feel that great. So that's kind of one thing to keep in mind. Okay, that's enough of that. Now, the front camera it does have, and it's not a bad front camera to be honest. It's definitely not amazing. I think it's 720p or not even. The microphone quality is pretty decent, but again, it's not anything I would brag about, and it's not something I would even I didn't want to mention in this video because all monitors have, webcams and stuff now, but it's really not that bad, and I think it gets the job done for the most part. Another big component and one of my favorite things about this display is the fact that it is a Thunderbolt display. So what does this mean? Essentially, Apple has created a long time ago this Thunderbolt technology that allows you to essentially use one port for a ton of different things. And in this specific case, the Thunderbolt port on our MacBooks, which all MacBooks, that are USB Type-C support, they have, a Thunderbolt port, which allows you to connect to other Thunderbolt accessories. And in this case, this LG Ultrafine 5K display, it allows you to connect to that. And it essentially allows you to go ahead and have it as a monitor, which is great. So it charges the MacBook, it displays the MacBook up there. And also my favorite thing about this display, it also allows you to have the option of connecting to 3 other USB Type-C ports. Now, why is this awesome? Well, for one, there's not really too many ports on your MacBook. There's only 2 or 4, but sometimes you have to use dongles, you have to use all this stuff. And in my use case, I am plugging in and plugging out SD cards all the time. If I had to sit there and put in a dongle every time and unplug it and then put the SD card, that would be so annoying. This display makes it very easy for me to kind of, get used to the MacBook having no SD card or anything like that because I have a dongle that's just plugged into the display 24/7. I'm not carrying the display around, so I don't really need to have the dongle be removed or anything. So that's something that's really awesome. I can just plug in whatever I need to that's stationary, any hard drives, any accessories, any dongles straight into the display without me having to connect it to the MacBook. And that is one of my favorite things about this display. And to be honest, with a USB Type-C MacBook like this, I can never not have a display to it because I'm always using dongles and I hate just plugging them in and out. Just having them stationary in place, all I have to do is plug in the MacBook to one port and everything is powered. That is my favorite workspace so much. And honestly, I thought I can never go away from a 5K iMac because of the display and how everything just, works. This one is a really close next step in my opinion. I will say though, not everything is perfect. You heard me complain about the build quality and stuff. There was also another slight issue, and that was with macOS Big Sur, specifically on the M1 MacBook. So for some reason, my M1 MacBook and macOS Big Sur, I'm not too sure which one was the problem, but I was having the craziest issues at that time, and it was a very annoying thing. So essentially, I would go ahead and plug my MacBook in. It would randomly disconnect software-wise. It wouldn't pick up. Even now sometimes I'll plug in my MacBook, but the speakers or none of the ports will work on the LG Ultrafine 5K display, so I have to unplug it, then plug it back in, and then it works. It's a very strange thing. I never really understand it. It is, I think, more of a software issue, but also because the M1, chip is so new, there can be some issues with it. I'll say 90% of the time it works perfectly fine, but there are issues where sometimes I want to plug it in, or sometimes I leave it plugged in, it works fine, I go to sleep and I wake up, but then the display wakes up and I'm able to use the display, but the sound isn't coming from the display, none of my ports, none of my dongles are being discovered by the display for some reason, and I never understand why that happens. Everything else works except for that specific situation. So in that case, it's not a big deal. You just unplug it and plug it back in. But again, that is a software issue. And I think because this display has gotten older and older, it is one of those things that you kind of have to keep in mind. It's a very unfortunate thing, but it's just something we're going to have to get used to, in my opinion. So essentially, what's the verdict? Is the LG Ultrafine 5K display still worth it? I will say yes. This display is still completely worth it in 2021. It cost me over $1,000, but it was a very good purchase for sure. It was a very solid thing I bought, and I'm very happy I bought it. It has a lot of capability. If you don't care about displays, or if you don't want to, there's just no reason to have it if you already have a MacBook. But if you have a Mac Mini, if you want to have another display, and if you essentially want the same display that the 5K iMacs have, then this one is the one for you. It is a beautiful display. I like it a lot. I think it has a lot of capability, and for the price tag, if this thing were to break, I would probably end up buying another one. It's so seamless, and I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the best monitor was for me. I wanted to spend the least amount of money, and I've had other, displays that were $100 or something. For some reason, this one, even though the build quality isn't that great, even though it's very average in terms of build quality, the display itself is very good. I love the Thunderbolt technology, and I just love having the USB Type-C ports right there. If you want the best one for your dollar, obviously I think this one may not be the best one, but I think it's a very good option, especially if you have a MacBook. If you have all the money in the world and get the 6K display, but I think other than that, this specific display is a very good option in 2021. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.